everybody, and thank you very much for joining us. This is the 127th week of the Free Assange Vigil. Um, with me tonight is my wonderful guest host, Misty Winston.
Guest host?
Call.
What the shit, dude?
I'm sorry.
Did I get demoted?
I'm trying to read
I didn't
the
even
script.
know.
Sorry.
He just demoted me live on air, you guys. The fuck?
No, you're the tech guy at this point.
I am. It's
Right?
weird. This is never a thing I thought I would say.
Right. So we will be having David McBride joining us. Hopefully Cathy Vogan will be happening soon. But before we do anything, I do want to run through the numbers. We have 4,025 days of illegal and arbitrary detention for Julian Assange. We have 989 days since the WikiLeaks founder was trafficked from the Ecuadorian embassy after being sold to the US and the UK for a $4.2 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund to the nation of Ecuador. We have 350 days since Vanessa Baraitser's January 6th ruling denying Julian Assange bail after personally ordering his release. We have 1,580 days of inhumane pretrial detention for the alleged Vault 7 whistleblower, Joshua Schultz. At least 1,174 of those days has been spent under special administrative measures since October of 2018. We have 998 days since the political persecution of Olabini started at the hands of the Ecuadorian government. We have 148 days since Daniel Hill pled guilty to one charge under the Espionage Act, and 64 days since he was transferred to the Communications Management Unit at the Penitentiary Marion in Southern Illinois. We have 85 days of detention served by Steven Zonzinger, 13 of which has been served under house arrest, marking the first corporate prosecution in the United States. We have 21 days since Craig Murray was released from HMP Belmarsh. We have 28 days since Reality Winner was put on parole. And we have 650 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning, 299 days of freedom for Jeremy Hammond.
That's a lot of numbers.
That is a lot of numbers.
And Jesse just called me Mindy from IT. Now I need another personality. Mindy, I don't know. What's something techie? Mindy Microsoft.
Oh God, that's terrible.
That is terrible. I am not an IT person at all, y'all. Not at all. Hi, Lucky. Hi, Charlie Brown's Rebellion. That's funny. That's a good name.
So while we wait, because everybody should be jumping in here soon, I do
maybe unless we get stood up. I just got demoted. Anything can happen.
Right, that's true. That's very true. I have some information about Julian Assange's judge, who was longtime friends with the minister that oversaw Operation Pelican. I got it on some slides if you want to do that. I don't think we talked about this one yet. We talked around it, and we talked about the judge's relationship to Le Circle, the CIA front, the NGO, and
there's all kinds of nefarious dealings going on amongst these people. It's like a big circle jerk of corruption. They all know each other. They're all married to each other. They're all. I mean, it really is. It really is a class thing. They're all in the. Oh, here comes Cathy. Hold on, I'm gonna wait. I don't see her. She might be having some tech issues. I'm not going to add her yet till I can see her. Maybe she's just having some issues. So yeah, we should definitely
she might not know we're live. She may think we're waiting.
Oh yeah, that's true. Because to be fair to her and to David, we were not sure if I was going to be home in time. I just got my hair done, so I wasn't sure if I was going to be home in time to start on time. And since I'm Mindy from IT, I had to be here to start the show. So yeah, we were going to push it back a little bit. So yeah, she may not know that we're live yet. So we'll just.
Do we want to start this, or do you want to break it right?
I mean, I can try to bring her in if you want. I still don't see her though. I don't know what's happening.
Story of my life.
Oh boy. All right. Oh yeah, she just bounced out. Yeah, I think she's having tech issues because she just bounced out. And I wore my "You're on mute" shirt for you again, dude.
Hey, I'm not muted yet.
Not yet.
I don't think my headsets have a self-mute button.
Okay, so that's good.
I think we're okay.
Plus, that used to be when you had to like run the two different thingies. So you would be mute. Now I'm the tech person, so
right, you're gonna catch yourself being muted by accident now.
no, I don't have to mute for any reason. Well, I do sometimes.
But we
One
need
time,
to get these two on, Matt Kennard and Mark Curtis.
yeah. Yes, please.
Yes.
Yes, please. I'm telling
I've,
you, I just want to say out loud that there was a video. I talked about it before. There's a video that Matt Kennard did. It's less than 5 minutes, like 4 minutes and 48 seconds or some shit. And it is like the best short, concise video about why you should care about Julian Assange. I love that video. It's something I use all the time to like the uninitiated. I send it to the uninitiated all the time. It's a fan-fucking-tastic video, and it was put out a while ago, but it's held up pretty well, for sure.
Speaking of uninitiated, the fucking Friendly Jordies video is like almost worth playing. That thing was awesome. Are you still there, Missy?
I just got booted from my own show.
We said it, right? Something.
Yeah, no, like it just shut off and it said, "You are not connected to the internet. Please make sure." And I'm like, "I am connected to the internet. What are you talking about?" So
That's as good as muting yourself, though.
I didn't do that though. That was totally not me.
Anyway,
this show is starting off great, you guys.
Right.
We're very scripted and professional here.
Let's do this. Lord Chief Justice Ian Burnett, the judge who will soon decide Julian Assange's fate, is close personal friends with Sir Alan Duncan, who is the foreign minister, who, as foreign minister, arranged Assange's eviction from the Ecuadorian embassy with Operation Pelican. The two have known each other since their student days at Oxford in the 1970s, when Duncan called Burnett the judge, and Burnett and Burnett his wife attended Duncan's birthday dinner at a members-only London club in 2017, when Burnett was judge at the High Court of Appeals. Now the most powerful judge in England and Wales, Burnett will soon rule on Assange's extradition case. The founder of WikiLeaks faces life imprisonment in the U.S. In his recent published diaries, in the thick of it, Duncan wrote in July 2017, "My good friend and Oxford contemporary Ian Burnett is announced as the next Lord Chief Justice." He continued, "At Oxford, we always called him the judge, and they always called me Prime Minister. But Ian's the one who got there." In an email response to Declassified, Lord Chief Justice Burnett confirmed he and Duncan have been friends since university days. Duncan studied politics and economics at St. John's College, Oxford from 1976 to 1979, while Burnett studied jurisprudence. Wow, that's a fun word. At Pembroke College in the same period.
Hey, Cathy's here. I'm going to add her real quick.
Okay. Duncan's
Hi,
diaries.
Cathy.
Hi.
We were just going through this article right here real quick.
I can dump it out and we can come back to it. It's not the most exciting.
No.
Yeah, Cathy's here.
How are you, Cathy?
Oh, well, you know me, always the same when I come on this show. I've had like
No
about
sleep?
10 minutes sleep, and now I'm trying to wake up with the coffee.
Do you ever sleep?
Oh, well, yes, I have big long ones, but you know, they're at variable moments.
Your hair looks fantastic. Did you just get it cut or something? It looks great.
No, it's been like this. Just yeah, lockdown didn't do anything. Look.
I got it. Oh goodness. All right.
We were just talking, I don't know if you want to comment on it before we get into everything else, about Duncan's, the Prime Minister Duncan's relationship with
to the Judge Burnett.
Oh, Sir Alan Duncan.
Yeah,
they've been friends since quite early, and they had lunch together. So yeah, the miserable little worm. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Did I just call Sir Alan Duncan a miserable little worm?
Did you?
No, no. But yeah, so you know, typical ill will, contempt from up top, and watching the eviction from the embassy. Look, Niels Meltzer predicted that Ian Burnett might be coming in to not do the same thing as was done with Laurie Love. You know, Joe wrote a what if piece, and one of the what ifs I thought was, what if he had his stroke like about 2 or 3 days earlier, and then Judge Burnett, Lord Chief Justice Burnett, would not have been able to compare him to Laurie Love with his eczema, because he was reasoning that Julian had, or Laurie Love had a physical ailment as well, so his eczema as well as you know, the depression and Asperger's. So it was like he had one point up, but then Julian had the osteoporosis, the chronic lung condition, but which didn't warrant a mention. But if he'd have had his stroke a few days earlier, perhaps Burnett would not have been able to say that, and we'd have seen a different outcome.
Yeah, that what if article from Joe was kind of hard to read, honestly. You know, like just thinking about what might have been differently, what might have gone differently if different choices were made. That's tough to think about.
So, why do you think the news on the stroke was like withheld from people? Because it happened, to my understanding, on the 27th of October, but didn't get announced until just recently.
It did happen on the 27th, and look, I think we were connected at the time. So what happened is we'd been tweeting. I'd been tweeting all morning, their time, but our time, it was coming up to dinner time, and so I rushed out to get some dinner on the table so we could you know, start again. We don't get a very long break. But 5 minutes later, the phone rings, and it's Mary Kostakidis, and she's saying, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Oh no, sorry, I was in the kitchen. What is it?" And she said, "Well, Julian just slumped over, like really fast, 3 times in succession." And she said the third time when he slumped over, he actually disappeared out of the frame. So that could very well have been when it happened.
That's what I thought, because everybody was talking about how terrible he looked. Literally every journalist that was covering it was tweeting about how sick he looked.
Yeah.
And then that picture, of course, leaked where you can see him kind of slumped over. And you can, I mean, it's the pictures, it's not a great quality picture, but even still, you can tell he does not look well at all.
No, and he was, you know, we had the camera on him for about 10 minutes while there was this surreal scene going on. I think we mentioned it. I mentioned it before on the vigil, that it was like some horrible dream that you wake up from. I had a dream where I was in court and they were arguing about whether I was going to commit suicide, and my defense were strenuously arguing that I would. And it's like, well, you know, that's the kind of thing you want to wake up to. But during that time, the very worst of it was about 10 minutes, and they had the camera fixed on Julian the whole time. We looked at him for a good 10 minutes while this was being discussed, and he had trouble keeping his eyes open, and he was blinking a lot, and he, you know, after a while, it was like if the hand wasn't there, the head would have fallen. But this is just after that, just as we adjourn, that's when Mary is still looking on, because the cameras don't go off at lunchtime, and the camera was still on him, and that's when she saw him slumping over 3 times. So that may be the exact moment that this event happened, but I cannot answer. There is no. Sometimes, you know, it's very tempting to speculate why something happened, what was the purpose, but there are so many possibilities that I wouldn't want to speculate as to why it was only announced. One reason I've heard is that, you know, politely, the defense didn't want to put pressure on the judges, but I find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
I would use I don't care. There's no pressure. We need pressure. Pressure's good. Let's do pressure.
But
Yeah,
we can't argue that because we have absolutely no idea.
Yeah, because
what we do know is they didn't get a chance to say it at the High Court hearing. In fact, they haven't. I mean, that would have probably come up. Oh, by the way, our client has had a stroke.
Because the thing that kind of concerns me is, like, if there hasn't been proper medical treatment or proper,
have we heard anything about that? Has he been treated?
To me, that seems like the only reason why there may be a delay is that it hasn't been fully diagnosed. Because, like in Jill Stein's comments, it seems like it's more of, hey, these are the symptoms I'm having and what it could be.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that I'm concerned about, is if he's like legitimately being withheld care by Belmarsh after suffering a stroke.
Well, they did say that the Daily Mail did say that he had an MRI.
Okay.
And so that would imply to me, but once again, I'm not sure. That would imply to me that he'd been taken to hospital. I don't think that Belmarsh prison, most prisons don't have MRI machines, but that's another, I'm just trying to make it up as I go along. It's very, very hard to understand. But what's clear, and this is what Craig Murray told us straight after, that neither the defense nor the prosecution were invited. In fact, they were told not to come.
Not to come, yeah.
And they were told there would be no submissions. And Alex Makouras said that the only kind of submission he can think of would be submission to appeal the ruling to the Supreme Court, which they, normally they would do that. That's normal procedure. And even if the High Court refused, that still didn't mean that they couldn't still apply to, that sounds like triple negative, doesn't it? So they could still apply to the Supreme Court.
Today was actually is it the 23rd that's the deadline for the appeal?
Yes.
Yeah, the 23rd? Okay. I can't remember if it was the 21st or the 23rd.
So that was very odd. But even if they'd have disagreed, but then they didn't, so they didn't ask to appeal. The defense didn't ask to appeal, so the judges didn't have to refuse it. But they were refused. They were told they weren't to come. And Gareth Pierce.
I found that to be very strange.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I've literally never heard of a court hearing where they told the lawyers not to come, even if it's
stay
the
home.
Most right. Because like lawyers at the end of the day, like they got to make money, and that's how they make their money.
Well, and I mean, even if you're not going to accept any submissions, you should still be part of the process. You should still be in the room. You should still be present in the situation. That just seemed very odd to me that they would directly tell both sides to just stay home. Seems weird.
Yes, it's most unorthodox.
Have you ever heard of it? I've never heard of another case do that, but I don't know much about the British court system. So I don't know if that was maybe something that was kind of more commonplace.
Well, no, Alexander Makouras said that it certainly wasn't. It was quite unusual, quite odd. But it can still go ahead. The next step is the Supreme Court. And then if that is unsuccessful, it goes back to the magistrate's court. The magistrate would normally send it to Priti Patel, the Home Secretary. But at that stage, the defense can once again appeal, this time back to the High Court again for a cross appeal. And that's where it could get very interesting. But at the same time, the state that Julian is in, it's looking very doubtful that he's going to last much longer.
No.
And Doctors for Assange, I don't know if you saw that.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
Have written to the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia, Barnaby Joyce. I just saw that appear. Actually, we just got it sent it very early this morning, my time.
Yes.
So that's breaking, and it's pretty strong language there. When you've got over 300 doctors.
And shout out to Doctors for Assange, because they have been fantastic.
Yeah.
So
Can we pull David in and then
yeah.
go through the letter?
Hi, David.
How are you today, sir?
Hi, nice to see you guys. Sorry I was late.
No, you're fine.
You're
We
fine.
were going to start late, but then started early instead.
Yeah.
So it was...
We're very professional around here. We've got our shit together, David. Oh, goodness.
Get it all turned on. Run away to get the lights. And I'm glad I'm here. And I'm learning something from what Cathy had to say.
I know. I love when Cathy's on. She's always very knowledgeable.
So I was wondering why they hadn't done the cross appeal, and now I know why they haven't done the cross appeal, because they can't. So it's cool.
Yes.
Yeah. Cathy, I actually wanted to ask you really quick before I forget to do it. So we know that this appeal that's happening now is based on the medical stuff, but they said that the First Amendment, not the First Amendment, but the press freedom stuff, all of the stuff that has to do with free speech and all of that hasn't really been. Do we know when that's going to happen? When that's going to be all of those issues will be appealed?
Well, look, there's Craig Murray who said that this Supreme Court appeal against the High Court judgment that could take 6 months. But Alexander McCurr seemed to think that would be more likely a year. So at that stage, if they win, he goes, right? He's free. But if it goes back to the magistrates' court, they've lost the Supreme Court appeal, then actually it might even go back to justice in any case. No, but anyway, if it goes back there, that's when the magistrates' court, when it goes back there, that would be a simple directing it to the Home Secretary for extradition, and at that stage, there would be, that's when they appeal. But then you don't know how long it's going to take for that appeal to actually come up. So by the time they've got to cross appeal, it could be 2 years.
Oh. Andrew, can you imagine us still doing this in 2 years?
I'd be dead. I'd just be like a skeleton.
Damn it, all to hell, you guys. We shouldn't even be here, as Kevin Gastola would say. We shouldn't even be here.
The longer it takes, the greater the glory. Look at the glass half full.
I just don't know how much Julian has left in him.
No,
that's what I'm worried about. I don't know how much he's got left in him. And I'm worried.
Yeah, I know. I think we're all worried, but if we send him good wishes and just kind of think good things.
Yeah.
Because there's no point worrying about it. Put it that way. That's not going to make him any longer.
But that's what I do, David. That's what I do, sir. That is what I do. I worry.
300 doctors. That's good. The 300 doctors.
Yes,
are very
that's
low.
true. No, there has been a ton in the last month. There's been a shit ton of movement. Barnaby Joyce is now speaking out. Obviously, Doctors for Assange has been doing.
And there was something in the conservative masthead in Australia the other day saying, Assange, it's got to end. That's the Murdoch newspaper. And
hey, we got Ilhan Omar to tweet about it. Finally, somebody. I mean, all she did was tweet, but baby steps will take it.
I think that's all we can ask for is that there's I like to use Second World War analogies, but that turning of the tide when we start fighting our way back, and as long as the commentators start coming in, people will. Will start to follow. I'm surprised my 70-year-old ex-mother-in-law, who I still get on very well with, who's pretty conservative and I think she's a bit of a weather vane, and she picks up on the zeitgeist. But she said to me the other day, she supports my case, but she wouldn't take it as far. Most of her generation don't support Julian Assange. For whatever reason, they're falling for the sort of the smear. But she said the other day, after the appeal failed, the appeal successful, depending on when you look at it. But she said, it's a shame about Julian Assange, isn't it? And I thought that was really interesting because she's not the sort of person that would normally say that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a person you know who I admire,
Yeah.
Friendly Jordies, that just
Did a
put out
video.
a very wonderful video about both you and Julian and Mark Davis.
Yes.
So I was wondering if you wanted to give your opinion of the video and what you thought about the way you did it. Yeah, we can watch it.
We can watch it, but yeah, I've been kind of bugging him a little bit. So.
Well, I told him I had lunch with him the other day because he.
Dude, tell him to come on our show. Andrew loves him, and I want him to come. I have messaged him, and he needs to come on our show. We'll have. I would love to have him on the show. Andrew has been a fan.
Too. I want to turn the tables. I want to start interviewing the interviewers. And
yeah,
I want to start off with because he's quite controversial.
I like controversial people. Those are my people.
Yeah. I want to give him a chance to explain why he does what he does, and that there's a method. And
all right, here we go.
I didn't share with audio. I fucked
okay. All right.
But
we're doing it live.
His following grows and grows, which is good.
Yeah, I consider him like the Jimmy Dore of Australia, basically.
I was only following orders. I was only doing my job. A sentence that is completely fine if you work for a construction company and they decide to make more money by using dung instead of cement. So you shit in your hands to get the building materials, which you then use to build a giant statue of the world's most impressive man, Hassan Piker. But not so much if you're a lawyer and it's your job to cover up war crimes, illegal espionage, and illegal surveillance. And to do so, you ruin the lives of heroes that stood up and gave the general public a chance to see what their governments, their supposed servants, do behind closed doors. Australia seems to have a pretty rich culture of whistleblowers and an even richer culture of hanging them out to dry. From David McBride, an army lawyer who exposed war crimes committed by Australia in Afghanistan, to Richard Boyle, who exposed how the Australian tax office act like loan sharks in collecting debts from small businesses, to Witness K and Bernard Collaery, who attempted to report an illegal corporate espionage operation committed by Australia in order to steal oil from one of the world's poorest countries, to Julian Assange, a man who exposed countless American war crimes, the shocking rate of civilian deaths in the USA's imperial wars, and also, perhaps most importantly, Hillary Clinton is somewhat shash. What do all these cases have in common? The Liberal government is desperately trying to ruin the lives of all these heroes, and they're succeeding. Not because it's a popular thing to do, but because there's enough soulless lawyers, bureaucrats, and politicians that are perfectly happy to act against their own values if it means collecting a paycheck. David McBride is facing 50 years in prison for attempting to stop war crimes. If you want more detail, I suggest you check out this video, but the absurdity of that should not be lost on you. Our Department of Prosecutions has not gone after a single one of these proven war criminals that are in our midst. Those murderers are still mixing in our society. But the one guy that stuck his neck out and did the right thing, I don't know how many ANU law graduates are now paid entirely to devise ways to put David in jail. And you know these lawyers, they'd all study their fucking high-minded righteous concepts at uni. But when it came to putting them into practice, silence. Not one of them has had even a fraction of the courage that McBride had, or at the very least stood up and said, I'm not doing this. It's the exact same story with Assange. When Julia Gillard incorrectly proclaimed that Julian Assange had broken the law by publishing the Iraq war logs, George Brandis, knowing of Assange's popularity, was more than happy to correct the record to win political capital, pointing out Assange hadn't broken any laws. Then when it came time to actually stand up for Assange, Brandis hung him out to dry, as has every Australian government since. At that point, Brandis fell back on the usual unproven sexual assault allegations as a way to justify his malfeasance. But that's just one of the rationalizations used in the revolving door of justifications those who hate Assange plough through in order to have a semblance of an argument as to why, let's be honest, they think Julian Assange should die. So yeah, first it was the sexual assault allegations. Yep, that's justification enough, kill him. You know, the allegations that didn't at all appear to be blown out of proportion and weaponized by the CIA to make it easier for the US to extradite him. The allegations that are so serious that the victim, in the same breath, accuses Assange of the heinous crime of not flushing a toilet. But now even the critics can't weaponize that alleged transgression because prosecutors dropped the charges against Assange, the judicial equivalent of flushing the toilet. So the next argument off the merry-go-round seems to be he didn't redact, he was reckless, he endangered lives, which for one, amazing these people never seem to give a shit about the fact that the USA enters into reckless and illegal wars that cause millions of unnecessary deaths, but all of a sudden, they really care about some Iraqi source who might have been compromised on page 300,000 of the war logs. Which is like the pantsuits the purveyors of this argument usually wear. It's clunky, and honey, it just doesn't work. Journalist and lawyer Mark Davis, side note, is my lawyer, so, you know, real deal. Less importantly, he was with Julian Assange when WikiLeaks published the Afghan war logs, and he's always pointing out Julian did redact. It's now been documented in court. Mark did a great speech about this a few years back, and I highly recommend you watch it because he tears apart these myths about Assange, and it's very entertaining. So with that argument totally owned, the Assange non-enjoyers fall back on their last and definitely strongest point, drum roll. He won Trump the election! Well, if winning Trump the election is grounds for doing what the USA is currently doing to Assange, you better round up a grand jury and get ready to do what Trump's election slogan says and lock her up. Lock her up. I'm sorry, but if you think someone should be jailed for exposing DNC corruption, what would be wrong with Trump demanding that whoever leaked the Hollywood Access tape be jailed? In fact, that'd be better because at least that'd be really, really fun. He released top secret state stuff, folks. Now, I like things to be open. I think that you should have everything out there nice for everyone to see, but not that. Some things have to be private. So it's abundantly clear. There are no rational justifications for what the US and their allies are doing or have plotted to do to Assange. And the people going after him know that. They only give out these justifications to help themselves sleep better at night. I wonder how they can sleep at all, as it was recently revealed that the CIA plotted to assassinate Assange, garnering moderate outrage and shock from the public, who have become so accustomed to their Western government's downward spiral into overt authoritarianism that a political assassination of a journalist warrants nothing more than an eyebrow raise. But to be honest, it wasn't a revelation to me either, as the USA are currently assassinating Assange. They've been doing it for a decade now. Short, sharp, secretive assassinations are so 20th century. This has just been an assassination by torture and attrition. This is a tactic also being used by the Australian government. Listen to this chilling excerpt from David McBride's interview with Michael West.
Government would like, they would like to see me commit suicide. Then it's not like two equally matched sporting teams fighting each other. They are pretty bad, and if you work for the government on this, they wouldn't say it out loud, but they would be happy for my children to self-harm, for me to self-harm. They really want to destroy me, and they think that that's part of the job. Now I say it's not. That's not the Australia I grew up in.
Harrowing. So-called liberal governments want heroes like Assange and McBride dead, and I'm starting to think they're going to get their wish partly fulfilled. Assange recently had a stroke, and if he doesn't survive extradition, there will be blood on a lot of people's hands.
Think you're a good driver?
Well timed, Dad.
We gotta add.
How good is that?
That was so good.
And there's still
So
like
good.
4 minutes left. Like we
Well,
can
I'm-
keep going.
Oh yeah, well let's see all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm down
yeah,
for watching
hit
it
the
all.
channel, Cathy. Don't you watch YouTube?
Andrew, Emma wants you to post a link in the chat. Can you send it to
yeah.
me, or I don't know if you can.
Hold on.
I don't know if you can send it. If you want to send it in the private, and then I can.
Doing it live. Yeah, I'll put it in the private chat.
Okay.
Boom.
Here comes Emma.
Oh. I will give the CIA this ultimatum now. Let Assange go or suffer the consequences. Write to your local MP. Get them to publicly back Assange. Bring him home now. You shouldn't be in the Labour Party if you don't have the guts to follow Kevin Rudd's lead and stand up for your fellow Australian. You have been warned.
So good.
And then it goes on to one of the MPs discussing what's actually going on in his case right now, like in very good detail. I don't know if we want to play that part too, but that ending is my favorite. That's
No, that was really funny, but to the point. You know what I mean?
Accurate.
Yes.
yeah.
Accurate. He nailed it. I'm so
Wow.
excited for it too, because he has a pretty big following. So that's massive. That's huge for us.
We had a good advisor in Mark Davis, right?
Yeah.
Because Mark's been involved in this story since way back.
Mark Davis we were just talking about how we need to get a lot of people. We need to get a lot of people on this show. Like, that should be our New Year's resolution, Andrew.
That's basically my New Year's resolution.
Yeah. We're going back to twice a week after the new year, y'all.
Tuesday, Friday.
We're going back to 2 days a week. So we're going to buckle down again. God damn it. Sorry, Andrew. It's not that I don't love you and I don't like seeing you twice a week, but
no, it's
shit's
a war
depressing
of
and it
attrition.
sucks.
It's brutal. It's
It
literally because it's
soul
what
draining.
They do to supporters too. They grind us down. The people that try to
and David, you're absolutely right. I wanted to talk about that because John Kiriakou said something very similar. That when you're a whistleblower or he said that everybody he's ever talked to who's ever had to be in espionage court has considered committing suicide, and that is an aspect of this. Of being a whistleblower, of being a truth teller, that they definitely use against you. They try to beat you down in every way humanly possible. And they'll either grind you into a pulp or grind you into taking your own life. And you're right. I think they would much rather that, Assange kill himself in Belmarsh, because then they can just wash their hands and be like, what can we do? They would love that. Nothing more, I think, than that they would love than that.
They would come out and they'd probably they'd probably say what a great guy he was.
Yeah, he would.
Yeah,
everyone would make a speech.
Yes.
Celebrate freedom. Isn't this terrible? How some terrible.
100% that would happen. 100% that would happen. Bernie Sanders would come out and talk about how Julian Assange was a great journalist, and dude hasn't said his name in 2.5 years. Yes, that's 100% what would happen.
Give Stella our condolences and invite her to the White House because we love press freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
just ask Biden. During his democracy summit, there was a whole day about press freedom as they're torturing Julian Assange to death.
They've got money for press freedom. Yeah, they think it's great. I know.
It's so gross, you guys. The hypocrisy is so gross.
I know it's getting out of control. But we do have to keep a smile on our face, because the more we walk around going, oh my God, Julian Assange, the more they're winning. The more, because if they can't kill him, what they need to do is to make us all want to kill ourselves. And you need to,
give up. They want us all to give up.
We need to, keep a smile on our face and go into battle with a smile. That scares them, that we don't care, that we're ready to go. We'll say we wait another year, we wait another 2 years, we wait another 10 years. We're gonna win.
Andrew's right though. There's a kind of every time that there's a major court date in the Assange case, it's not just about Julian Assange. There will be like an active campaign against supporters too. Like, a lot of people will start attacking supporters, and like, I'm called a cultist all the time. We're all crazy and weird, and like Hassan Piker likened us to fascists, and
that happened, but that would have happened to that's the American security state in action, but that's what they used to say terrible things about the Viet Cong. And, I saw it the other day in the Australia, the propaganda, they must all go to the same college, because there's a whole lot of independents, really credible independents, who are challenging the sitting Conservatives in the coming election. And this sort of shrill Conservative senator was like, they are going to destroy us in our homes. They're going to destroy our Australian way of life. These people are they're representatives of the Greens and the extremists. And it was just like, it may as well have been Joseph Goebbels, that was like, you could imagine it blaring out of a loudspeaker.
Yeah.
All this sort of alarmism about how, and these are real, truly grassroots supporters.
Yeah, that happens here too. Everybody calls Joe Biden a communist.
Yeah, I know. He's such a communist. I can see him in his chairman now.
So ridiculous.
Look, they make it difficult for the journalists as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know. In fact, nobody knew, and not even Stella knew, according to Craig Murray, that this the ruling was going to happen in the courtroom until 3:00. the previous afternoon.
No.
We didn't know. Yes.
Well, I know Craig Murray didn't know because he was like literally hanging out at home, like just in the city somewhere, and got a phone call and they were like, "Hey, can you get to Belmarsh by 9 tomorrow morning?" And he's like running for the train. Like Craig Murray's such a superhero.
Saw it on Twitter.
Right, he was out of court for like 3 days and then showed up.
He's such a superhero, you guys.
Yeah.
Craig Murray
he's good.
He's amazing.
It's actually worked well. I mean, obviously it was very painful for him, but it's raised his profile. It's raised, everybody likes him all the more. George Galloway was talking about. I mean, it's been great, and he's out.
Well, the way that he handled everything with such grace and dignity and humor, like he kept a sense of humor about it. And I mean, he's just, and the thing I love about him is even when he was giving a speech upon being released, it wasn't about him. He was talking about Julian Assange. Once again, Craig Murray's not worried about himself. He's worried about others. And that's my favorite thing about him, is that even when he was Andrew and I have talked about this a million times, he was in the middle of his own legal stuff, right? Like he was already in the middle of his legal case. And he was every day following the Julian Assange trial, writing these awesome articles every single day, and never talked about himself. He never asked for help. He never asked for donations for his legal fund. He's always talking about other people first. And he's like one of the most selfless. I don't know him personally, but he just seems like one of the most selfless, down to earth people. And I love him. He's amazing.
Yeah, he definitely
is. He's good. And that's a sort of, again, that's a small sort of turning of the tide. He was put in jail, but he didn't buckle down. He didn't take a backward step. He suffered jail for a dignified, relatively old man, and now he's out. That's the sort of stuff which really, I mean, people not bad. Daniel Hale going to jail saying, basically fist pump in the air saying, I've never been prouder of myself.
After representing himself in court, nonetheless.
I mean, that's the sort of stuff which will win us. Yes. People standing in front of the tank in Tiananmen Square and just saying, try.
And the solidarity too, that Craig shows for Julian, the solidarity that you show for Julian Assange and for Daniel Hale, like that solidarity amongst whistleblowers and journalists is so powerful. It's so powerful.
That's one of the things I've got up my sleeve is not being scared of going to jail. Then look in there and say, do it. Put me in jail and see who's in power in 3 years' time. Because that's real strength, because they're such bullies and they're used to people cowering. They're used to people being scared of jail. They're used to people going, oh my God, don't put me in jail. And when people like Daniel Hale say, oh, well, whatever, put me in jail, I'm right. That's sort of, they don't know how to deal with that. That kind of scares them. And then people, once people start to follow, it becomes like a critical mass. And if you can get that
courage is contagious
very fast. Like the fall of Afghanistan, it happened slow, and then very, very fast. And because they're all dependent on public opinion. So once you can sway, then there's no moral courage already, really. Nothing is based on any principle. And as soon as they think that some of their key electorate are falling, it'll go down like a house of cards. Because they won't want to get their ass hit by the door. And
I keep saying, if we can just get, it's going to be a floodgate. You're right. I think what's going to happen is it's going to become politically acceptable, publicly acceptable to support Julian Assange. We're still not quite there yet. It's still kind of a taboo subject that a lot of people won't touch because of all of the shit that surrounds it. But once we get past that, once we push through that wall, and there's like one or two people who are like big names who come out and publicly support Julian Assange, it will be, just a wave of support, I think. And it's going to come really quickly. I wish we would get there fast, but we're working on it.
Hey, we're in a better position than we were 2 years ago. And
True.
Well, there are some people are already supporting him, but it's in that the same vein as I'm not a racist, but
yes,
they prefix it with, I don't like this guy personally,
but
I actually don't know.
That's okay.
It's okay, but I will say that the Mehdi Hassan recently, who's a garbage journalist. But he did do, finally, somebody on mainstream media actually talked about Julian Assange, and he did a monologue about it. But people got mad at me because I was angry about the monologue. It's garbage. It is propaganda laced the entire way through. The entire way through, he brings up every smear that has ever been brought against Julian Assange. And he's like, yeah, maybe he did this, but, the first minute, or maybe he helped Trump, but, you know what I mean? Like, it's just and I get that it's great that, it was mainstream, a coverage, which is good. Like, getting it out into the kind of the mainstream consciousness is a good thing. But we have to push back against that propaganda. It's not good. That's just
you hit as you say, laced with bullshit.
Yes.
It looks like just an opportunity to get all this bullshit in again, more Russiagate and all of that.
That's what I saw it as. It's like they're very cleverly throwing in these negative digs so that it undermines
You say
the support.
It gives you the chance to refute them, and he needs this done in the public arena. If 50% of the people hate him and 50% of the people like him, he'll be released. He just doesn't have that much exposure. But if he can, even people publicly hating him and making it a mainstream topic of conversation is good for him.
Sure.
Because because people will have to justify their position. Be a bit like when the American government had to justify the war in Vietnam. And the more they had to do that, the worse it got. What will kill him is lack of visibility. It doesn't matter. I'd love the Americans to come out. I'd love Joe Biden to come out and say, this is why Julian Assange must go to jail. How good would that be? I mean, it'd be
nobody was
fantastic.
he was asked one time, I think at the Democracy Summit, somebody yelled it out and he just turned it and like ran.
Yeah, cool. I mean,
Like,
imagine, on any of your major news channels. I mean, it would be so good because they would just be shot down. They would by opening their mouth, they would defeat the whole cause. And
there has been a couple of people that have asked in the press room, have asked Jen Psaki and I forget who else, but they've directly, and obviously it's always this roundabout, you have to ask the Department of Justice. We're not going to answer this. Blah. They always try to kick the can.
Asking the slippery soap salesman.
Well, they've been, if you actually watch the videos of Jen Psaki getting questioned, like, not that like a little bit of fire is better, but it's actually like the reporters asking the questions are like, no, but we want to know what you think.
Yeah.
Like,
what's the guy's name? I'm so bad at names. Matt something. Matt. I don't know. He's from the AP, I think, but he's like one of the kind of decent mainstream journalists. There aren't, please understand that that's on like a scale of mainstream journalism, but he's pretty good. I can't remember his last name. I want to say it's Matt something, but I am, you guys know I'm bad at names. But yeah, he's been very forceful in his questioning. Like, no, really, what are you going to do about Julian? No, really, stop giving me this bullshit. What are you going to do about Julian Assange? So that's good. We need more of that.
Yeah, more of that. It's great. I mean, he just needs to stay in the public eye. I mean, I know this is it's not like a slam dunk thing. It's a slow process. It's going to take a couple more years, but because those questions cannot be answered properly. And the more they try and answer them, the more they tie themselves up in knots.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it won't even be over if he goes to trial in the US, as long as he can stay alive.
Oh, then shit gets interesting because then I'm 6.5 hours away from DC. I'll be there every chance I get.
People don't really know how those courts work, but once the light is shone on those courts, it's going to look bad for the US government. It's going to look very bad.
Andrew and I will be organizing a lot if he comes stateside.
You are guilty. I mean, this is a Soviet-style court where everybody that goes in goes to jail.
All of them, 100% conviction rate. That's crazy business.
It does not stand up to scrutiny. The fact is not thrown out in the Supreme Court, or at least.
And a lot of people don't realize, I've had a lot of people say, well, shouldn't he just go to trial and like plead his case? He doesn't get to plead his case, you guys. No. There's he doesn't get to present a defense, really.
But people don't know that, of course. And
I know, but I think that's another thing we have to focus on is a lot of people think, I mean, if he didn't do anything wrong, why can't he just come here and face, a trial and face, no, he doesn't get a real trial. That's not a real trial.
Yeah, no jury. No jury.
Yeah, there's no jury. It's just a judge, and you don't get to present a defense. You don't. That you just. You're just basically your sentence.
There's no ability to say you were justified because there was a Holocaust.
Yeah, and no, Rob, it's not Matt Kennard. It's an American journalist. I think he's from the AP, and I'm going to look it up because it's going to drive me nuts.
But
it's driving me nuts.
That's the problem, is that there is no justification for it. But that will, people don't know that, and it's an illegal court. It's an illegal court. It goes against the U.S. Constitution that you would that's simply.
Well, I will be back in just 1 second. I'm sorry.
He always does this to me.
That's all right. You're holding the fort very well.
One time it was funny. I had Andrew was my host, and I forget who the guest was. It might have been Jesse Jett, maybe. I don't know. But they both left. And I was just sitting here like, I'm all by myself.
Did you do a little dance, a little song, maybe?
No, I just rambled awkwardly for like 5 minutes.
You do a monologue.
That's what I do. I ramble awkwardly. That's what I do. That's what I do. Oh,
but all this talk about
Matt Lee.
Good. All this talk about what lies ahead and the years that lie ahead, I think we are getting terribly ahead of ourselves by even thinking about this, because what the doctors are saying is that there's something wrong with his brain, right? And that's very, very serious. And Jill Stein said that the symptoms that are described in the Daily Mail, and that is a drooping eyelid and delayed pupil response. Well, there are a number of things. She said that this is not commonly associated with stroke, but it is associated with third nerve palsy, brain tumor, aneurysm, and a number of other things. So when there's something wrong with somebody's brain and they've had something like a stroke, then, there has to be immediate action to find out exactly what it is and do something about it, because he could be dying. He could be a candidate for another stroke, and he's been given anti-stroke medication. But Jill Stein has said that she doesn't have confidence in the diagnosis because of the particular symptoms mentioned. It doesn't match up, and nor the treatment. So, he could.
I have zero confidence in the fact that he's getting adequate medical care. Zero confidence. He is definitely not getting adequate medical care, at bare minimum, at best.
Well, one thing is, if you look at those assurances, that Part D says that he won't be put in ADX pre-trial.
It's not a pre-trial facility.
Is that? Nobody gets put there pre-trial.
It's post-conviction.
But did you know that ADC has no doctors?
Really?
So, yes. So we've got a prisoner who's just had something like a stroke. We're not quite sure, because the medical community is saying that doesn't add up. But what they are saying, it has to be found out what exactly happened to him, because Jill said, whatever it is, it's not good.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing, where he's destined to, if everything goes streamlined, and it does seem like they're trying to fast track it because of his condition. So he's destined, his first stop is definitely ADC, because Alexandra Detention Center.
That's where everybody goes.
That's where everybody goes in free trial. That's where Chelsea Manning attempted suicide. I've been outside of there when I was in Washington. Joe took me along to see it. It's a miserable place. And somebody just recently succeeded in committing suicide. But there are no doctors. So how can you put a stroke candidate in a prison? We know that it's possibly going to drag out for another year or two. But that's where he's destined for. How can you do that when there's no doctors? So that's why I said with that, what if? Oh my goodness, if that stroke had happened just a few days earlier, it would have really changed things in the ruling. But then, of course, you have this very odd thing where no submission was allowed to be made, and most certainly his present condition, which now adds up to 3 physical conditions and 2 mental conditions. So that's 5 different things that they're pretty serious that Assange is suffering from, 2 of which are likely to provoke him into committing suicide, and the other 3 are serious physical conditions. So that's this brain thing, chronic lung condition, and osteoporosis. Poor guy broke a rib just bending over to pick something up. His bones are like chalk.
And his teeth are really decayed too. The first time he was
Jade
in
just
prison
posted
in
that.
London, the guards actually put metal shavings in his food over a decade ago, and he's never been able to receive medical treatment to actually get that fixed back up.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite a different thing if he dies, not commits suicide, but if he dies in British custody. Because the British government have been warned so many times now by doctors for Assange.
Yeah.
And, they're getting really pissed off now. So, that's where the pressure needs to be applied. And they won't want Julian to just die of natural causes on their watch because they didn't give him adequate medical attention. That's not what they want. But that's what they're facing. And it could happen any time.
Yes.
So this call for his immediate release on medical grounds is the best way forward. Because if you just think about it, even if it does go on for 2 more years, if he's not in custody, but he's with Stella and the kids, and he can have access to his lawyers, and he's conducting his cross appeal, which I'm sure will, if there's anything left in him, that will bring Julian to life.
Yes.
I
just don't understand why he can't be put on home confinement. Put him on home confinement. This is ridiculous. He's a remand prisoner to begin with, and he's just being held. Yeah, he needs to go to hospital, but then there's absolutely no reason why he cannot be put on home confinement. He's one of the most recognizable people on planet Earth, and we're in the middle of a pandemic which has most things locked down. He's not going anywhere. Let him go home. Let him go home and stay at home and conduct his appeal from home. There's no reason. He has no history of violence. He has no, I mean, he's a journalist. He's not, you know what I mean? Like it's very clear that this is petty and vindictive. And it's, just a way to brutalize him. And it's not just about Julian. They're sending a message with Julian. They're using him to send a message. This is, he's the head on the stake. He's the, hey, if you fuck with us, we're going to come for you. And this is what we're going to do to you. And so he's being used as like this, a way in which to scare people and create a chilling effect across global journalism. And it's been effective. Let's not get it twisted. It's been effective. It's 100% been effective. And it makes no sense whatsoever, but none of this case makes sense. So just add another one to the list.
Well, the doctors have called, said what he actually needs is to go to hospital. What he needs is continual, high quality, independent care. And that would be diagnostic for some time. But treating the number of conditions that he's got, just throwing him some anti-stroke medications, if that's not the correct diagnosis, he could very well die in prison. And we might find out that he'd had a brain tumor, and the British wouldn't even, although the Australian government does terrible things like that to refugees. We've had refugees die because they didn't fly them to the mainland and get them to a hospital in time. One of them had only cut his foot. And by the time, he got septicemia by the time they got him to a hospital and he died.
Do we want to play the statement by Jill Stein that you sent me?
Oh, absolutely. If you want to go to our Twitter.
He's probably got it. You already have it pulled up, Andrew?
Yeah, I got it. The most recent one, I have it pulled up. Okay. I have also the one you sent me that's on Google Drive as well, though.
As you like, because not the interview as well, just the statement. I sent you them both.
Okay, let me do this one.
Because the interview's like about 9 minutes long.
Yeah, this one's good. About the statement.
Thank you, Dr. Stein, for doing that.
Yeah, she's a champ.
Well, and she's got a big platform and people have a lot of respect for her, so that's helpful.
Julian Assange's fiancée, Stella Morris, announced recently that Mr. Assange had had a mini stroke on October 27th, the first day of the latest extradition hearing, according to the Daily Mail. He was reportedly left with a drooping right eyelid, memory problems, and signs of neurological damage. This dangerous deterioration of Mr. Assange's health underscores urgent concerns raised by Doctors for Assange over the past 2 years. Therefore, once again, Doctors for Assange calls for Mr. Assange to be released from prison so he can access consistent, high-quality, independent medical care, something which is impossible for him to obtain in Belmarsh prison. We reiterate that Mr. Assange is in no condition to undergo an extradition trial. Further, extraditing him to the harsh conditions of the inhumane U.S. prison system should be out of the question. He should therefore be immediately and permanently released from prison. This latest medical emergency adds to the already dire state of Mr. Assange's health, owing to his prolonged psychological torture. This includes 11 years of arbitrary detention, medical neglect, solitary confinement, obstruction of access to his lawyers, and an Orwellian legal prosecution that has violated the rule of law and due process, including that key accusations in the U.S. indictment against Mr. Assange are marred by outright lies and a paucity of fact, that he and his legal team have been surveilled by the CIA, and that Mr. Assange has been targeted by that agency in a plan to kidnap and assassinate him. Throughout, Mr. Assange has been subjected to concerted character assassination through propaganda campaigns in mainstream media across the globe. Assurances that Mr. Assange will not be subjected to harsh prison conditions by the very agency that has been plotting to kidnap and assassinate him are farcical. For the High Court to accept such a ludicrous proposition, describing the assurances as solemn undertakings offered by one government to another, calls into serious question the independence, impartiality, and integrity of the UK judiciary. The health of Mr. Assange and the health of our democracy, which depends on a free press and judicial integrity, are both in serious jeopardy. This shameful and deeply damaging case should be dropped now and Julian Assange granted his long overdue freedom.
Great statement.
It's very good, isn't it?
Yes. Very strong, direct. I like it a lot.
And I like where she comes out of the government and says at the end, the idea the government would accept these assurances.
Right?
Is
y'all. The fact that the UK court system is like, oh, well, they said it's fine, so I'm sure it's fine. Come on. Are you joking?
Yeah.
Anybody who takes anything the United States government says at face value is a fool of epic proportion. Like, that's just ridiculous. We have been breaking treaties and extradition for years, the entirety of our history. It's what we do. It's what we do.
I wouldn't
ask our Native American brothers and sisters what we do. They'll tell you. Assurances mean dick.
It's collusion. It's criminal collusion. And
even the assurances they put forward, like they're not even pretending like they're giving good ones, because it bans ADX Florence, which is a post-trial facility. It says nothing about the Alexandria Detention Center.
Well, and they also leave themselves that backdoor thing where they're like, well, if he does something after this that we decide designates him for ADX Florence, then we can change our minds then. It's like, what? That's not any assurance of any kind. You can just make something up, as you've been doing for the past 11 years, make something up that he did and decide he gets to be thrown in ADX Florence on a whim. Like, they just get to do that. That's not an assurance. That's garbage. It's not even worth the paper it's written on, as I think Craig Murray. So maybe it was Craig Murray. Maybe it was John Reese. I don't know. Somebody said that, but it's true. It's not worth anything at all. It's ridiculous.
You know, the thing is that people might this might appear like a mistake, what you're talking about, Andrew, but the court did hear a lot of testimony about ADC, the conditions in pre-trial, from two witnesses. And so it's not, Baratza heard that formed part and parcel of her impression of US prisons. There was a lot of stuff about ADC. And one of the worst things that is now particularly relevant is that there are no doctors, but the conditions are almost identical to Sam's. If he's put in a communications management unit, and John Kiriakou told us on the show that he was put in a CMU, and it said that his case, I don't know how he saw this one has access to the media. So that's one of the reasons you get put in the CMU. But in that case, you have really, like, the only difference between that and Sam's is that you have a little bit more restriction on who you can communicate with Sam's. That's it. But you're still isolated. It's still extreme isolation.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have formed part and parcel of Baratza's impression of US prisons, because she knew that he was going to be there for years, possibly 10 years, before he would finally get to the post-conviction phase, if he were to be convicted. And then, imaginally, this other one about going off to Australia. When Australia, there's a real big problem about that, because Julia Gillard did say that our Prime Minister back then in 2012 said that Julian 11 and onwards said that Julian had what he'd done was a criminal act. But then 10 days later, the Australian Federal Police corrected her, as if they'd have to. She's a lawyer, all right? But they said that he did not commit any crime under Australian law. So one of the main things when you have these extradition cases that needs to be established is dual criminality. And we obviously don't have that. We have that problem in Australia. But furthermore, in the case of Dan Oakes, you would know, David, that the CDPP, the Commonwealth Direction of Public Prosecutions, advised the Australian Federal Police that they would get an easy conviction of Dan Oakes, but it was not in the public interest to prosecute journalists. So we've had that precedent set as well with Dan Oakes, whose case is very similar to Julian, because they're both on the journalism side rather than the whistleblowing side. And normally on the journalism side, people have been protected. And in America for 300 years. But when you think about it, Peter Zenger's case was what really gave birth to the First Amendment. But that was because he had a jury who decided that the law was wrong. But in this case, it's with the Espionage Act and going into that court in the Eastern District Court of Virginia, possibly with Judge Brinkema, who nobody gets declared innocent in that court. You either strict liability. You either possessed the documents or you didn't, and you published them or you didn't. But this publishing thing is just, everybody's in turmoil now. Even your hypocritical mainstream media hosts who have to prefix it with, I don't like this guy, I don't like him, I don't agree with everything he says. We've got Australian politicians who say that as well, trying to be supportive mainly. But, the thing is, can it turn back around again? Well, you've got this problem at the Eastern District Court of Virginia where you don't have a jury. And of course, that's not even Julian Assange's peers, because his peers would be Australians, right? His people would be Australian.
Mm-hmm.
But, if there were a jury, it would be, people of a different nationality for a crime that wasn't committed alleged crime that wasn't committed in that country. It's all very weird.
We're charging somebody like a foreigner under our laws but we're affording him none of the protections of such. Like we're charging him under our Espionage Act, but we're not affording him the protections of the First Amendment. On what planet does that make sense? Like that's having your cake and eating it too. That's ridiculous. WikiLeaks has never been an American publication. Julian Assange has never been an American citizen. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. And the fact that nobody is really calling that out, aside from people in our circles, that's bizarre to me. The fact that the media hasn't mentioned that once. I mean, and you're right. The disclaimer of, I don't like this guy. I've never met Julian Assange. And I'll say it again. He could be the biggest asshole on planet Earth. And I would still fight against what's happening to him because it's wrong. It's wrong. And I don't need to preface that with, I think that guy's an asshole. It's just wrong. So fight against it. I've never met him. He could be the biggest asshole on planet Earth. That makes no difference whatsoever. None at all. So the fact that you feel like you have to offer a disclaimer before standing up for the principle of press freedom and free speech is ridiculous. Stop doing it. Stop doing it. Even if you're trying to offer some kind of tepid support, you're undermining everything that you say positive about Julian Assange and in support of Julian Assange by then, putting this disclaimer in front of it, like, yeah, he's an asshole, but press freedom. It should just stop doing it. I don't know why people feel the need to do that. And I get that there's been a lot of smears. And so people get nervous about, offering up support of Julian Assange because of the different things that he's been accused of over the past decade. But none of that makes any difference whatsoever. You're standing up for, first of all, a principle, but second of all, these are he's not the things that he's being accused of. He didn't do, first of all. He never hacked into anything. He never helped anybody hack into anything. All of that stuff has been very well debunked. And so it's just weird. It's weird to come out with these awkward and bumbling disclaimers. Just say,
you've got other things that you have to defend there, namely human rights, the right to medical care,
right, and to a fair trial. They spied on him.
Well, as Mary Kostakidis said to me the first time I ever spoke to her, she said it was an interview type thing. And she said to me, you don't just defend the human rights of people you happen to like. Or the contrary, ignore the human rights of people you don't like.
Yeah.
Right. So this is much, more, this should be in the foreground, somebody's human rights. We've had the violations of his right to freedom of movement, but, there couldn't be anything more basic than the right to it's a human right to medical care.
No,
and that's
this is the United States, Cathy. In the United States, that's not basic.
but also what you say is right. But he is a glaring example, but they have been applying the principle completely wrongly, as you suggested. If they don't like you, you don't have any rights. Look at the people in Guantanamo Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the people that got tortured to death in Abu Ghraib. Nothing happened about that. If they decide you're an enemy of the state, there is no law in terms of the United States government. They use it as an excuse to put their enemies in jail, but they don't see that it applies to themselves.
Yeah, they're lawless. None of that applies to them.
Yeah, Julian Assange is obviously what we're discussing today, but they would have killed thousands and thousands and thousands of their enemies illegally, either by torturing them to death or just taking them to black sites and murdering them. And it's been since 2001 that is the way the US government operates. If you're an enemy, rights are just a camouflage. If they get caught doing something, like in Abu Ghraib, where they found that people have been tortured to death, they might sort of start talking about rights. But again, it's a camouflage. There have been so many examples. Assange exposed a lot themselves where they didn't apply the rules of engagement. They lied about how many civilians they killed. It's not the exception; it's the rule. And I guess hopefully that will begin to come out. But they don't. Well, you saw Biden the other day saying he loves press freedom. the statement, the country is increasingly, or the government is increasingly an outlaw state.
And as is always the case, it's the truth teller that's punished. It's never, I mean, not only did we torture people, but then when John Kiriakou exposed that torture program, he was the one punished, not the people that tortured folks.
Yeah,
tortured folks. We tortured some folks.
In Australia,
what can you do?
It's this sort of team mentality where people get sucked into the fact that they're on this toxic team and therefore they will fight for that toxic team. You saw it like the people, if you've seen that movie, the Mauritanian about Guantanamo Bay, and what really goes on, there's this intelligence officer, interrogator who you really probably believes he's in the right, that he can just sort of torture and kill this guy, and that's a really good thing to do, kind of thing. There's no question of following the law.
If we're doing it, then it's good. That's a lot of the mentality in this country, especially, is that if the United States is doing it, it's the good, right, and just thing to do.
Well, they said that was half a joke in the Bush White House, but I mean, even worse than it being a black joke was the fact that it was also serious when they started saying, when the torture allegations came out, saying Americans don't torture. Meaning if we did it, it's not torture, whatever it was. We could have torn the person.
It's enhanced interrogation, David.
Make it up, but the fact that we did it means that it's legal. And the scary thing, first I thought that was really bad graveyard humor, but I think that that's what they believe.
Seriously, in this country, there's a huge percentage of the population that has that mentality that if the United States does it, it's the good, right, and just thing to do. We're the good guys. Obviously, we would never do anything untoward. Like, that's just unthinkable. I mean, that is the patriotism and the idea that you shouldn't question that we're good, we're the good guys. That is drilled into our brains from birth. I mean, it's from birth. The moment you come out.
It's the Assange case writ large. I mean, it's quite clear that he did the right thing, and he exposed a lot of very terrible, thousands of terrible things, which are relatively complex. Some of them are quite clear, like collateral murder. Some of them are quite complex about the state behaving extremely badly. And yet, no one is lost their job as a result of the revelations. And he is considered this sort of terrible kind of enemy of the state that needs to die. And they somehow think that by killing him, that will solve the problem, And that's the fact that we've got to that stage in this world is pretty bad. And the fact that, killing someone who actually not only is it wrong, but if you think that that's going to make anything any better, you really are a very sad, sick organization.
Well, that's definitely the United States government, a sad, sick organization.
I don't know if you've seen Michael Moore's Sicko.
Yes.
Do you remember that, where he sailed into Guantanamo Bay? And he had brought all of these Americans who couldn't afford health care there because they had an extraordinary hospital, a medical facility, because they didn't want the prisoners to die after they had been waterboarded. They needed to be able to revive them. And so
they had intricate force feeding, so they couldn't starve themselves.
Yes, but the point is that they had great medical facilities there where they don't have an ADC. But more importantly, I think that if he dies before he leaves the UK, either by natural causes or suicide, but particularly by natural causes, the British are going to get the blame for that, not the Americans. And they always want to cover their asses. So I think that and Belmarsh,
that's what I'm kind of wondering, because that there has to have been conversations had about what the optimal situation would be. Where do we want him to die? When do we want him to die? Who's going to take the blame for it? Who's going to take the fall for it? And so I'm just curious, like, what is their end game here? Which country is going to take the blame? Which country is going to take the fall? Because they're killing him. Inevitably he's going to die.
From a totally cynical military strategist point of view, I think they would prefer him to die the US would prefer him to die in England. So, as Cathy said, so they could blame the English and say.
And the English would prefer him not to die because of medical.
But do you think that they're just doing as they're told because they're the US is
such a
bitch?
now they probably owe money to the US and they'll take the fall for that, you know.
Take one for the team.
Yeah, they'll take one for the team, I think.
Yeah, but they don't want him to die because of medical neglect. They definitely don't want that.
I think they're trying to push him to suicide.
Well, of course, but they control the narrative, and even if that really is the truth, they'll say, "Oh, he killed himself."
Yeah, and then they can be like, "Oh, well, what can we? I mean, he killed himself. What can we do? I mean, it's terrible, but what can we do?"
Not if he has a brain hemorrhage,
heart condition.
Yeah, no, if he dies of natural causes, but I think they're trying to push him to suicide. I think that's they would much rather that. The fact that we're talking about this is really fucking depressing. Like, we're talking about how these two countries are like collaborating to murder a human being is depressing.
We need to talk about it so other people will talk about it.
I know. It just strikes me every once in a while how sick this situation is. Yeah, it's sick.
It is sick. It is sick. And that's why we have to fight really hard. And that's why we have to never give in, because, you know, it's not an exaggeration to say the future of the world depends on things like this. The next 100 years, if we can't turn the trajectory around now, we really will be living in a very dystopian world. You know, social credits controlled by the US government. That's pretty scary, you know. So we have to fight very hard. A lot rides on it. You know, important is his life is far more than just his Julian Assange's life.
Andrew, you should play the Orf video.
Which one?
I can pull it up, actually. I'll pull it up. Orf just did a video. It's like a mashup of mainstream journalists talking about the Assange case. And it's basically like, if he loses, we all lose. Because, you know, we are all Assange. Hold on, let me pull it up here.
To David's point about how it's all interrelated, Western media didn't start. So coronavirus started in China in late 2019, following a report that came out exposing the location of torture facilities, right? It didn't hit Western media in a large scale until after Julian Assange's trial at the end of February, beginning of March in 2020. And to me, that shows that they were trying to just solidify total media hegemony and had essentially proved, hey, we can publicly torture and try a journalist. Let's run with this. We have this propaganda machine. It's well-oiled, well-greased. Let's go. And so I think that that's part of this larger fight, because you have the fight for bodily autonomy. You have the fight to stop.
They're hitting us from all directions right now.
And it's all interconnected.
Yeah.
Because it's not just Julian that's being targeted by the CIA and the FBI. It's now parents at school board meetings that are being targeted by the FBI here in the United States. And you have Project Veritas here in the US, and you have Friendly Jordies over in Australia that are being targeted for independent journalism by law enforcement at the same time that Twitter changes its terms of service and says, hey, we can remove your videos for harassing a journalist.
Yeah.
Or harassing a public official. So if you try to break that story of, hey, I have a camera on this person and I'm asking them these uncomfortable questions, they can just pull that down. Or a video that gets leaked to you that shows someone in a compromising situation, that's now like internet contraband, according to social media platforms.
Okay, here, this is only 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. I'm gonna play this real quick. Oh, I don't know if I hit, hold on, because I don't know if I hit audio.
Sure, I told you to do something muted.
No, that's not counting as muted. Shut your pie hole. All right, here we go. Now we're ready.
Sometimes, to defend basic principles like free speech or a free press, you have to defend people you may find distasteful, maybe even people you loathe. And with that in mind, we need to talk about Julian Assange.
I think these espionage charges against the WikiLeaks guy are a huge deal and a very dark development.
They have him locked up in the highest security prison, 23 hours a day in solitary confinement.
This has been going on for a long time, and it shows how dumb we are. That it took us a very long time, years, to ask the obvious question: what exactly did Julian Assange do wrong? Everyone, all good people hate Julian Assange. What was his crime exactly?
It is not the same kind of criminal allegation they made against him in the initial indictment. It's not some hacking computer crime like they originally charged him with. These new charges are trying to prosecute Assange for publishing.
Publishing things other people sent to him. He was a journalist. He was an editor. That's literally true.
And newspapers and magazines and investigative journalists publish secret stuff all the time. That is the bread and butter of what we do.
Julian Assange brought you information that you had a right to know.
I would also point out the irony that the US government has spent the past decade pursuing Assange while failing to prosecute any of the alleged war crimes by US military personnel that Assange and WikiLeaks revealed.
Relating to two horrible wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, that we absolutely should not be a part of.
What this is now a novel legal effort to punch a huge hole in the First Amendment,
The first part of our Bill of Rights.
by labeling it criminal espionage to publish secret stuff.
This case is about criminalizing freedom of speech.
A new legal doctrine, a whole new legal lane for the US government that's never existed before, where anyone who publishes stuff the government doesn't want published gets prosecuted by the Justice Department under the most serious statutes imaginable, facing long prison terms for doing it.
He's being charged for what journalists do every day.
This is, to put it bluntly, wrong, unconstitutional, and downright tyrannical.
What he published was truthful information that the American public and the world had the right to see. He's a publisher, just like we are.
If Assange's publishing of classified information runs afoul of the law, so does the work of just about every single press outlet, this one included.
It would fundamentally change the balance of power between the people and our government.
What it should have ended with is Alex Jones on stage at his free press conference chanting "Free Julian Assange."
No.
Well,
Andrew,
'cause
that's
then
a terrible idea.
No, it puts it all into perspective. That, like,
no, that is
matter
a
what
terrible
side
idea.
of-
Then it's immediately linked back to Alex Jones. People will laugh at it because Alex Jones is laughable and it would make it less serious. That's a terrible idea, Andrew. One
I
of
don't
your
know,
worst.
It was a pretty serious moment.
Yeah, that's one of your worst ideas ever.
Well, it deserves to go in there in the montage of people from all different spectrums.
Right, that's
Yes.
what I mean. Because you
But
have
to
the
end
Rachel
on it with
Maddow
Alex Jones
all
shouting,
the way.
no,
I
that
just-
immediately takes the seriousness away.
That's fair.
That was a great video, though. So shout out to Matt. He does a great job. He does great videos.
I mean,
So that's a really good one.
Making up ground with things like that and Barnaby Joyce, and it's good. It's slow steps through the snow, but I mean that's all good.
I just hope we can do it in. I'm not. I'm. You guys know if you've been watching me for a while, I'm not very patient. So I get very impatient with this stuff. And when Andrew and I were just talking about this a few weeks ago, we started doing this 2.5 years ago. We didn't think we were going to be here 2.5 years later. Andrew was like, I thought we maybe do it for like 6 months and then you get out. And no, here we are 2.5 years later, 127 weeks.
We're fighting a very big, powerful, sinister enemy. You know.
I know.
We're not
It just seems like it's taking too long, and I don't want him to die. I mean, it's that serious. He's dying. They're killing him. Like I know that sounds very melodramatic, but that's where we're at, fam. Where they're killing him straight up.
There's no doubt about that. They want to kill him. These guys are they're bad. They are the bad guys of the world. They're not. It's not some sort of a mistake or they want to kill him.
Yes, it's murder in slow motion.
That's the way it is. But and it's not just about him. It's because they are very bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Because they start wars on phony information because they want to start. They killed hundreds of thousands of people. They have killed thousands and thousands, and they've covered up the tracks. They've tortured people to death. They put out false information about other countries in the world, saying how bad they are, but actually we are as bad as any other country in the world. And I don't say
The United States is worse. We're the worst. We're the fucking worst. It's not even close. It's not even close. It's not even.
I saw
close.
that the military spending, and they talk about China. The US spends approximately 3 times what China does each year.
Oh, it's more than that. We spend more than like the next 11 countries combined.
And it is just you're right. Well, there's no doubt about it. It's the worst. It is the most destructive.
Well, the hope against the U.S. military, right, in my opinion, is the fact that it's all for profit. So it's not designed to work for long. It's designed to have to be repaired and parts have to be replaced. So like all the space weaponry and like kinetic satellite weapons and space machine guns that them in Israel have installed, hopefully will only work for so many uses before they get decommissioned, because they are made for profit of manufacturers, not for functional use.
Yeah, that's right. It's a way to turn public money into. That's the terrible thing.
Right. So that's literally like our largest hope, is that we can organize enough to make them pull out space weapons against us, and then they break after the first 5 strikes.
I saw it was published for a different reason, but it was on Reddit, and it was a photo of a so-called stealth bomber caught on Google Maps. And they are not nearly, despite the fact that they cost $8 billion or something each, they are not so stealthy that they don't appear on a relatively slow camera, but they get sold the Empress New Clothes, with all this crap that doesn't even work very well. But they don't care. Just said they get the sale, and you get the sale by having lobbyists in Washington saying how great something is.
Right, like Israel openly assassinated an Iranian scientist with a space machine gun, and they only fired 13 rounds. So what I'm assuming is on round 14, the machine gun malfunctioned and they had to stop firing to kill the Iranian nuclear scientist. So,
and they get away with that. I mean, they could just go kill people in another country, and it's kind of good. Because
yeah, I mean, the last major leak of the last major leak of classified military information was WikiLeaks. The last time we got a good view of what our government was doing in the world was when information was published in 2010.
No, that's why they win. They win even if they just keep him tied up in jail.
Yeah.
And that's right. I mean, that's the punishment is the process. I think you even said that, David, in your interview with Michael West Media, that if you've got a lousy case from the beginning, and I include Sweden in that, there was a problem with there being no forensics on this so-called ripped condom. There was no DNA on it from either party. No sexual
That's
DNA.
some magic trick.
Big problem. But you have a piece of shit case. What actually happened in Sweden is it was just delayed for 5 years so that it didn't get resolved. What's happening here with Julian is that it keeps getting delayed as well, and nothing happened. If you look at the extradition hearing and the forensics that they had on the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act charge, well, it was impossible. That it didn't work for with the forensics. That's not what the forensics told us. That the narrative that the United States had constructed, this helping Manning crack a password in order to obtain unauthorized material. Well, that didn't work because Manning had top secret clearance already. Anonymity could not have been assured, and also so the narrative was completely implausible. That fell. Then there was Ziggy, that fell as well, especially when he. It would have been a long, arduous argument in court. That would have taken years. But Ziggy confessed and said that he had been lying as well. So that is the second thing that. Kills the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act charge, which is really the linchpin, because if they can't do him for that, then they can't do him for espionage. They needed, as Biden said right from the beginning, they needed his active participation in obtaining the information. Otherwise, he was just like any other journalist who had the information thrown in their lap. So that I think they know that they have a shit case, and in fact, in the extradition outcome as well was the medical grounds can't be extradited for medical grounds, and Alexander Makuras explained to us, and even Nick Vamos, who worked in extraditions for the CPS, I think, Crown Prosecution Service. He said that when it's an Article 3 issue, right, medical grounds, it's very rarely argued at the appeal, and it's just almost unheard of that it would be granted. So it's like this case is a hopeless cause, but it's a win-win situation for the United States, which something that, you know, by just making it go on and on and on and on and on for 10 years and God knows how much longer. But that's also been facilitated by the British as well, telling the Crown Prosecution Service, telling the Swedes not to come to the UK to resolve this, to ask their goddamn questions.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Mariana knew, and finally I know how to pronounce her name properly. She wanted, and they wanted, Sweden wanted to quit in 2013. And what the hell are the British doing? Saying, no, don't you dare get cold feet. Don't treat this. This is not like any other extradition case. You know, don't come to England. Don't even use mutual legal assistance, which is a framework whereby they can be interviewed via video link. That can be facilitated as well. So all of this was refused. You had the Chief Justice of Sweden, who came to give a lecture in Australia at the University of Adelaide, Chief Justice Stefan Lindskog. And he actually said during the Q&A that there was no legal reason, according to Swedish law, why the prosecutor couldn't go to the UK and question Mr. Assange or use a video link connection. So that was delayed for no good reason, no legal reason, for 5 years. The whole thing is about just keeping Assange shut up.
Yep.
Shut him up. Shut him down, Mr. President. And a gagged is the end game. No matter what happens, if he suicides, if he dies, if he has to go, oh, what a pain.
Just shut him up.
Just shut him up.
Yeah.
That's
in the Stratford leaks. That's in the Stratford leaks. We're going to tie him up in legal cases for the next 25 years. And that's exactly what they're doing.
So
that's what Zizek said as well.
This is going to seem weird, but that's kind of what they're doing, at least in some part, in my opinion, to Siggy in some way. Like, not that he's even a good person and doesn't deserve treatment for what he has done, especially to children, but he's currently being held in indefinite pretrial detention, which is just wrong. That's the same way that Joshua Schultz is being held. And not that he's innocent of crime, but that treatment of a human being is unacceptable. So they'll do it to you, whether you help them and back out, they'll do it to you when it becomes convenient, right?
Yes.
So human rights to them are as mutable as anything else.
Human rights are mutable, and Julian is proof. That's from Conviction, Winter and Belmarsh by Jesse Jett. It's one of my favorite lines.
Yeah, I don't believe in the law. It's just a disguise. You saw the ultimate hypocrisy with Biden talking about how great press freedom is. That is all just to win the progressives over. Everything has become political, and I think there would be a very seedy underside. Those of us who've been following the Epstein case quite, not even really deeply, but it seems highly likely that he was a front for a blackmail organisation, and people that have been stung in Epstein's web. A lot of them are politically connected and wealthy. They're the sort of people who were, like in Sweden, were doing totally illegal things and putting pressure on. That's how you get somebody in Sweden to say, we're not going to follow normal procedures in this case, and we're not going to send prosecutors to England, and we're going to throw the rule book out the window because someone's been blackmailed by an Epstein type thing, and they are told, unless you play along, you're going to be exposed. I suspect that's what happened. Something along those lines happened to Blair's government before the invasion of Iraq, and that the Attorney General Goldsmith had said they can't do it without and he wrote a legal opinion on it put it down in black and white to say without something further, it would be illegal to invade Iraq. And then he goes to Washington for a visit, and he comes back and he writes a different opinion, which says war's 2 thumbs up for war. Now that's highly suspicious. He was either, given it looks like something happened where there was some incentive, maybe one way or the other, to change a very important legal opinion, which said change whether the war was going to be legal or not. I think that's how they get to a lot of people. And if being nice to them is not good enough, you find another way to get to them.
Well, Neil Smeltzer talked about, not that torture would be bad even without this, but that one of the core fundamental rots that torture causes is of national and international relationships, because it almost becomes that game of blackmail where this person has this power, so we're ignoring this crime, and this person has that power, so we're ignoring this crime. So it's played out on that whole global scale, like everything from human trafficking, which I believe Julian was trafficked. He was purchased for a multi-billion-dollar loan to the nation of Ecuador. It was probably the most expensive human trafficking operation that's ever been put on. And it's the same powers that keep that hidden and out of public sight, that keep the Epstein trial hidden, that take down the sources doing trackers on Twitter to try to keep track of the trial, things like that. So it's all the same fight, just showing up in different ways. Some of them much more extreme than others.
Definitely, there's an undercurrent in so many things, but the Ecuador one is hugely important. I mean, to think that they basically carried out
sold a human being. So and for a plate, he did get a dinner plate. He got a plate from the Palace gift shop. Come on, you guys, I can't. Could you really turn that down? I couldn't. I'd have to go along. He got a plate, you guys, a commemorative plate.
And they kind of changed the government, and they've kind of said, "Well, if Ecuador, we're going to change that government." And it's pretty despicable to think. I mean, we know that they change governments in Central and South America all the time, but hopefully, I guess again, I'm trying to be the glass half full. Hopefully, in 50 years' time, this will all come out to say just how disgusting an organisation the US government has become. That they will, they will depose governments if necessary, put in flunkies, put in jail, even people who are going against oil companies. We have become like the character, like the villains in a sort of Marvel movie. We've become comic book villains.
Yes, and shout out to Steve Donziger too, who's also shown solidarity to Julian Assange, and has spoken about Julian Assange and in defense of Julian Assange. That's great. I'm very appreciative to him for that. We need more voices like that. And there was some argument like a week ago on Twitter. Somebody who is relatively high profile was angry because somebody else who is relatively high profile said something in defense of Julian Assange. And can we just knock that shit off? Can we just stop? Like, your little petty beef or whatever issue you have, stop it. Julian needs every voice, especially people who have millions of followers on social media and who have like a higher profile. Stop it. We don't need your bullshit high school drama to interfere. It's not okay. Like, just stop it. It's so dumb. It's so counterproductive. He needs every fucking voice. Period. End of story. I don't even care. Like, there are people that Tucker Carlson's a jackass. I can't stand Tucker Carlson, but I am so thankful that Tucker Carlson speaks out in defense of Julian Assange, and I welcome his support for Julian Assange.
Do you remember when Jake Tran made the video about Julian a couple months ago, like 2 months back?
Who?
There was a streamer, like a video game streamer, that has like a conspiracy YouTube channel.
I don't pay attention.
He made a video about Julian, like a very good, articulate, relatively accurate for the time that it was made video, and it's gotten 2 million views.
Nice.
So while there's like those petty Vosh squabbles that happen in the background behind everything that's outside of most of independent media's view, like the gaming culture and shit like that, it's still
this was another Assange supporter. Somebody who is vocally supportive of Assange, like very vocal, who was mad because somebody that she doesn't like was vocally supportive of Julian Assange. And this is somebody else who's also been a long time a vocal supporter of Julian Assange. Like, okay, I get it. You don't like that person. You don't trust her. You don't like the things. I don't care. Don't give a fuck. I don't care. Leave your petty bullshit at home. We don't need it. We do not need it.
Or use it as a starting point for conversation.
As I've said before, it's good if as long as he's in the news, let him have a fight about it.
True. Fair enough. I should have blown it out. I should have blown it up
Yeah,
on
you
Twitter. I should have blown it up on Twitter.
That's not what you should have heard what they said about you last.
Well, I did confront her. I did confront the person because it's honestly, it pains me because it's somebody that I have a genuine amount of real respect for. And so seeing her behave so, I mean, forgive me, childish. It was childish. It just was really disappointing. Really fucking disappointing.
It's good because we could. It's easier to attack an argument than to attack silence. Yeah, so,
that's true. Fair point, David McBride. Fair point.
So let's just talking about it is good because the worst thing that people can happen is they just don't talk about it. They just
I mean, Hassan Piker calling Assange supporters fascist actually did a great. I mean, it brought that was talked about for days on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, that's right.
Thanks, Hassan.
Let's keep it there very much on the list of people's talking points because it's fine if people want to run him down. Let's have that argument. Let's get in the ring. Muhammad Ali didn't get famous by not fighting George Foreman.
Right.
You've got to get in there and let's talk about it.
I talk about it all the fucking time. I'm annoying. I don't care. I'm called a cultist because it's all I talk about. I don't give a fuck. Come at me, bro. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. I don't need your acceptance or your permission at all.
Can I put out some relatively breaking, exciting news?
Yes.
Adam
I need
Kokesh
good news.
Just got out of jail.
Yay!
You put a video up an hour ago. Case dismissed.
Nice.
I can lawfully and legally possess psilocybin mushrooms now and plan to do a lot more.
Welcome to freedom, Adam. He was in jail for a week, right?
A little bit longer than that, I think. Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I was just scrolling. I was like, I wonder how Adam's doing. I was like, oh, Adam's in jail. Probably not too good.
Yeah. I think Steve DM'd me or put it in the group chat or something that he was in jail or something. I haven't had a lot of time to follow what exactly happened or whatever. There's a lot of shit going on in the world. But hey, I'm glad you're out, Adam. Good for you, dude. Adam's a good dude.
Yes,
I'll get shit for saying that because he's a libertarian, but I don't care. I like him.
Tell us what about Adam. We don't know about Adam.
Adam Kokesh?
He's an American YouTuber that started probably when YouTube was virgin in 2008, 2007-ish. And has just been around since then as a libertarian spokesperson. He ran for
He's funny.
The nomination for the Libertarian Presidential Party or Libertarian Party here. And everyone that did the vigil was like, hey, we'll be a fucking delegate for you. So we all got registered libertarian.
Not me. That was before me.
Yeah, that
was
before
me.
But so he's a solid guy.
But I like him.
He's I think an Iraq war veteran.
Mm-hmm.
That came back and became a very vocal anti-war activist and worked alongside Ron Paul in that era of the Ron Paul revolution. Not that it's ended, but when it began.
I like it already, man. It sounds good.
Yeah. No, he's a good dude. We should get you guys on the same show, actually. That would be fun.
Yeah.
I think Adam and David would get on fabulously.
He sounds good.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I'll email his guy and see if I can't get him booked.
Yay! Especially now that he's out of jail, we need to get it. We need to get him on to talk about it.
I also wanted so I've been in contact with somebody that can help us get Craig Murray on the vigil. And I want to try to get
fangirl so hard.
Well, I want to try to get Craig Murray, reality winner, and then you with us, David. But I know the time zones are all fucky to get all three of us.
Oh my god, that makes my head hurt just thinking about trying to shuffle those time zones.
Right.
I'm getting a bit better with the time zone, and the good thing about having a regular slot is you start to get used to it. But let's go.
Okay, cool. I'll send off the messages trying to get all that put together. But that's something that.
Oh my God, I will fangirl so hard if
like,
we
I
get
just
Craig
think that
Murray.
would be an amazing panel to like listen to you guys.
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about
No, I'd like to be on the panel with Reality Winner and Craig Murray. That'd be great.
Yeah, no promises, but I will give it a.
No, Andrew, I have my heart set on this now. You can't fail me.
The viewers have heard it. Can't get out of it
Don't
now.
fail me now. I need this in my life. Okay.
It sounds good though. We love it.
I need it.
That's one of the things I'm going to try to get going in the future.
Give me something to look forward to, please, sir.
Right.
All right, can we wrap this up? I gotta go. I'm tired. My kids gotta go to bed.
Me too.
Do you guys want to let everybody know where they can find you and the work that you guys
I'm gonna
do?
drop Consortium News in the chat. They're doing their winter fund drive right now. So go to their website and then there's a cool little donate button. Go support their winter fund drive, please and thank you. I'm also gonna drop David's GoFundMe in the chat right now for his legal defense. Please and thank you. Support if you are able, or share. Sharing is caring. Even just sharing the link is very helpful.
Yes, sharing is very good. Just talking. I've got to put my money where my mouth is. Just talking about my case, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Don't say I'm an asshole. But you can, I guess. I gotta like talk the talk, walk the walk. But let's see. I think publicity is good for all of us.
Mm-hmm. I'll drop Twitter handles too, just in case. But do you guys want to tell everybody? Is there anything else you get? Cathy, is there anything you guys have coming up? Exciting?
Yeah, we've got a couple of shows planned, but I won't announce anything yet because we just have to get confirmation about dates and things like that. But yeah, we had James Goodale on our last show, and that was fantastic. He's going to write a piece for Consortium News, which is very interesting. So that's something that will come up fairly soon. But I'd just like to thank you for inviting me on. And since it's been a long night, we kind of tend to work around the clock occasionally. I'm going to have to get another bit of shut-eye. But I'll very happy to come on next time. Whatever's happening, I'm glad to talk about it.
We love you. Thank you for, seriously, your tireless work. Like, you are always working on something.
She is.
And
thank you, Cathy.
it's amazing.
You do great stuff for me.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes. Thank you.
One thing I've got coming up is a song.
Woo-hoo.
So I've written a song about Julian, Chelsea, and Aaron Schwartz.
Oh.
So it's about all three of them, and it's about, you know, the bigger philosophy of what they tried to do, and how we need to change the world after learning all that, but it takes time. So it's called Time to Change the World. So I'm working with an English musician, and it's coming along. I've been working on that half the night as well, trying to sing at 4 o'clock in the morning. But there you go. I've got a song coming out.
I love that.
That's exciting.
You and Jesse Jett should get together and do a song too. That would be great.
Oh,
yeah. Awesome. I love Jesse.
He rocked the house last time, didn't he?
Yeah, I will fangirl about Jesse Jett all day long. I love Jesse. All right, David, do you have anything exciting coming up or anything you want to?
No, I don't have a song coming out, I'm afraid.
Bye, Cathy. Are you leaving, Cathy? Bye. Bye. We love you.
I don't want to leave while David's talking.
Oh,
go ahead, David, and then we'll.
I know I'm in your shadow now. I don't have a song coming out, but I feel like I might have to do a rap or something.
Do something with Jesse.
He's pretty good. He could probably carry me. You could mix some samples in or something.
Yeah, he could just sample you.
Yeah, I wanted to get a T-shirt coming out. I had a really great one. I don't have it here, but it's all blacked out, like a redaction. It's actually about the Americans, but I will. No, I'll have that next time. Remind me to bring my redaction T-shirt, which I
Will do, sir. Will do.
All right. Thanks again. It's great to see you.
Thank you guys both. Appreciate it.
Okay. It's bye now.
Bye. Thanks, guys. Okay, so as we close out, Andrew's gonna play. I hope it's okay. I don't think he's gonna care because he loves me. We're gonna play.
We don't monetize anyway, so I don't think.
No, he honestly, Jesse would not care. He like wants to openly give away his stuff for free, anyways. So we're gonna play "Militia Intent," which is one of the songs, one of Jesse Jett's songs. And then
I think
also,
Girl requested it in chat, and I'll never pass on an opportunity.
oh yeah, of course, Cynic did. I love you, girl. But I have bitch tomorrow. If anybody wants to come at 7:00, we're having a very merry bitchmas. I don't know who's coming again. I have no idea. I'm just gonna send the link to people. Whoever shows up, shows up. And then Friday, we're still gonna. I know it's Christmas Eve, but we're still gonna do Facts on Friday. For Facts on the Ground with Jesse Jett. Or Jesse Zerwell. Too many Jessies in my life. So that'll be on YouTube and Rockfin on Friday at 4. I think that's it. I don't know. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you can follow me on Twitter, but you guys know where to find me. It's no secret. All right, Andrew, anything for you?
This will probably be the last vigil until after the first of the year, just because of holiday stuff and crazinesses.
Maybe, unless I get feisty or something happens or
something.
something.
We could always plan for like New Year's Eve.
Well, I'm doing a New Year's Eve thing with KRTD, and
I'm gonna hop on there with them too.
Are you doing the 10:00?
I don't know. I gotta fill the form out.
Oh, okay, because they're having me and I know for sure me and Randy Credico are on the 10:00 hour to talk about Assange.
Okay, yeah, I'll probably ask them if I can hop in with them.
Well, I'm excited to see Randy.
Yeah, I've actually never met Randy or talked to him like ever.
Oh, that's right. You weren't in DC last time in July. That's when I met him, and then he was kind enough to ask me to. He did like a 3-interview show with activists, which shout out to him for highlighting activists. It's great. I love that. It doesn't happen very often, but thank you for that, sir. So it was me, Emmy from the UK, and Alex Hills from New Zealand, our girl Alex Hills. So he interviewed the three of us about like our different paths towards like Assange activism and how we got here and our, the roles that we play, all that stuff. And it was really cool. So yeah. And then like we had worked on trying to organize something in DC. He got to go. I have kids. It's hard for me, you guys. It's hard for me to do on the street stuff. And before you say just take your kids, my kid's autistic.
And I don't recommend taking children to DC ever.
No.
As a city, they have the like highest missing children unsolved mystery per capita.
Yes. But even
like I'll tell my kids that too. They're like, "Here we go." I'm like, "Not to this one."
No. But like even if it was like Columbus stuff, I still can't. My kid hates loud noises. It's a megaphone. You can't like this is not gonna work. She doesn't like crowds. She doesn't like it's a whole thing. So it's not easy to do street stuff anymore. I make it happen when I can though. I forget what the hell I was even talking about.
I don't know. I was close enough.
Oh, Randy. Yeah. So I was on his show. We've organized a couple things together. We've talked on the phone for literally hours. I love him so much. So yeah, we're going to be on the 10:00 hour on New Year's Eve, the KRTD Revolutionary Blackout Network mix-up thing that they're doing, like the whole day extravaganza. So that's going to be fun. So you guys can check that out too.
Thank you. And the damn wars in April. That's the organizing starting for that. I'll probably jump in and help out after the first of the year, just because of my life.
If you remind me, I'll remember to jump in and help out. I always forget to check that shit though. I am with group chats and all that stuff. I'm the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, are we ready for some Militia Intent, fams?
I think we are.
All right, we're gonna close out with that. And yeah, that's it.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
What's more American than slaying your oppressors? What's more American than liberty or death first? Man, I thought we were founded on a ball abolishing the tyranny of those who would starve a village all to live empirically. And I regret that I have only one life to give for my cause now that I can see the cause so clearly. I want our leaders, regardless of party, to fear me. I will pick my targets and assassinate them lyrically. I will bring a mountain to the town square, hook them to the pillory and leave them there. Hillary, I'll see you there. Hillary, I'll see you there.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen to 50,000 dead? Now we know our mission, we form a militia, make Congress a prison. Why play civil when all these dead won't make you listen?
Welcome to the fantasy of rhetoric. Welcome to the last of the free speech while we can get it. And I promise you can get it. All you corporate Democrats, second wave Confederates, GOP illusionists, and neo-Nazi bureaucrats. And Stephen fucking Miller, I will see you in the aftermath. When all the laws are dust, there's just moral justice after that. And I will hunt you through the wasteland if it comes to that. So I can rub you in the dirt like a cheap human Brillo pad. I can sleep fine when our beds are burning, Stephen, but I'll turn around and run into the blaze to get my pillow back. As long as I can lay my head down, I can live with that. I can deal with a little ash. I can feel like a little of the old me burn with the bad and the rest of my past. The old world where we all lived and we can't get back. The old world where you didn't give and you'd still get back. Where you could rake in 12 billion and give none back. Those days are behind us. The virus will kill all that. Your wealth is behind us and kindness is meant for the past. Our leaders would bind us and starve us and call it a fast. A sacrament meant for their God that they garnish in cash. And they feed it the poor by the hundreds, that's all that it asks. Its hunger is legion and people in need are all it will have. So our only chance is to starve it and hope that it turns on them.
You can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Can't keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads.
And that was Militia Intent, ladies and gentlemen.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.